Feet, I love them. Not in a weird way. I'm a big fan of working with the feet in terms of process of reorganizing how we can build our body up from the ground. It's really a simple process. We actually approach it mainly from a sensory input perspective rather than a muscle strength, because the feet are a very sensitive structure. They've got a lot of real estate in the brain that's associated from a sensory perspective, and that just means basically we've got to put them in lots of different textures, lots of different situations where they've got to feel lots of different stuff. Hot, cold, hard, soft, spiky, smooth, lots of that kind of stuff, and as much variability within that as we can. So I'm going to take you guys through some really nice simple things you can do at home or on your travels that can keep your feet in a really good nick while you're away, and try and give you some things that you can also do to help still build up the strength, but while we're also still using the sensory perspective. Okay, so I'm on one of my go-tos, the stone board. I've used it with many clients over the years, and I've actually rehabbed many low back injuries over the years through the feet and using things like this. All I want you to do, like if you haven't got a stone board, get a big bucket of stones. You can tip them onto your floor, walk around like that. If you're a bit worried about the space they make, then you can grab some shoe boxes, put some stones in the shoe box. If you've got a backyard that's got some stones, just make sure you go and walk out on those every day. And initially you're just going to walk around, have lots of little tiny steps on them. Okay, you don't have to be on one point for a particularly long time. It's literally just standing on them and exposing your foot to that situation. When things start to feel a little bit less spiky, a little bit less uncomfortable, then you can start to spend a bit more time on them, and you can start to play around with things like balance. Literally spending a bit of time on one foot, letting your body auto-correct. Okay, best core exercise you can do, because it's hitting your body at those spinal reflexes, so it's going to have a much more powerful impact than doing 100 sit-ups. Same on the other foot. And again, I'd really recommend putting yourself in positions which are comfortable to start with, but gradually making them less comfortable so that you can build up your tolerance around the sensitivity and also the reactive strength in your feet. And you might do that for a couple minutes a day. If you want to get fancy about it, close your eyes. Really great chance to see how your feet are communicating with your vestibular system. The combination of the two stack your body up against gravity. And that's a true reflection of posture, as opposed to always being told to pull your shoulders back. If you want to work on your strength, this is where I quite like the stones. You can do little bits of mini lunging work. Now, through this example that I'm doing, as you reach through, you've just lightly tapped the floor. You don't put any weight onto it, and you can change the direction at which you do that. It doesn't have to be for a long time, and I actually am more interested in your standing leg rather than where your leg is going, okay? Because what I want to see is that your standing leg changes every single time, and no matter where your foot lands, that's where it has to stay, even if it's just a little bit uncomfortable, okay? You got to stick through that, let your body auto-correct and react to the different variations of foot movement that you can do. And obviously, the more confident and strong you feel, the lower you can take that, okay? Once you've done quite a bit on things like stones, you can also use bark, you can use grass, jump on a trampoline, any of that stuff's great, whatever works for you. Start with nice gentle surfaces, build up to the more vicious ones, because by the time you can walk on sharp stones and whatnot, then your everyday life getting around is much, much easier. So you don't have to spend huge amounts of time on it anymore. Okay, but this stone board or whatever you can make at home, I'd recommend on a daily exposure, at least kind of 5 minutes a day. Build that up to making it part of your daily routine, walking around the house barefoot, go out, do your gardening, go for a walk along the river, whatever you can do. Cool. Other things that I use for people in terms of keeping their feet nice and healthy, I've got a little array of props here. One of our classic go-tos is a spiky ball, rolling it underneath your feet. Spiky balls are great. If you don't have access to a spiky ball, then you can use other things. I've got a Franklin ball here as well, which is a nice soft squishy green ball. It's got lots of holes and divots in it. Also got things like a little dog chew toy here, a little tennis ball. Anything that's just going to be round, a little bit hard, but also a little bit forgiving. Okay, all you're going to do is roll it forward and back underneath your foot to start with. As you get more confident, you start to put a bit more weight down into it. Okay, and you actually start to really squash it down into the floor. And with that, you can start to roll onto the outside edge of your foot. You can go onto the inside edge, go around the toes, get into the heel. Okay, anywhere that feels like there's a little bit of tenderness there. Okay, once you've given it a good massage, next bit is to throw in a little bit of balance again. Standing on the ball, you've got the front third of your foot on the ball. Just lean into it till you feel confident enough that you could take your foot off the ground and react. Okay, and the goal again is not to try and hold yourself perfectly still. I actually want you to put yourself in a position where your body has to autocorrect again. Okay, we want our reflexes being trained. Okay, if you're not challenging those reflexes, they get pretty lazy. Okay, and then when you are put in positions where your body has to quickly react and they're not ready to go, that's when you're going to have trouble. Okay, that's when things can go a little bit pear-shaped for you. All right, once you've done 10 seconds on your toes, 10 seconds in your arches again as well. Doesn't have to be 10 seconds continuously, even if you can just build up to a couple seconds at a time as your tolerance for the pressure in your foot increases. Okay, and again, same on your heel. 10 seconds at a time, letting your body do whatever it needs to do to keep you upright. Okay, it's always good to walk on the spot a little bit between your feet. That way you can feel the difference in your foot, why you feel like that might be beneficial, particularly for people who are running or walking a lot. Really useful thing to do to keep mobilizing and opening up all the little structures in your feet. Obviously we're going to do the same on the other foot as well. Again, start with a little bit of a roll, a little bit of a chance to open up through your toes and explore the lots of different areas. Start putting a bit more weight into it. And then again, building up to standing and trying to balance. Go for a good 10 seconds or so on your toes as best as you feel you can tolerate. Good. And same again in the middle of your foot. Good. And again underneath your heel. I've got quite a firm spiky ball. I'd recommend if you've got something with a bit more forgiveness, then definitely do that. You might also notice that I've got my bare feet out. Again, feet are a sensitive structure. When you put them in socks and leave them in socks all day, they just kind of get a bit dull. Okay, they're not really picking up a whole lot. So if you can take them out of the shoes, walk on lots of different terrain, then that's going to do really great things for that sensory input rather than just the muscle action. Cool. Now, once you've done bit of foot massage with the different balls. The other thing that I really like doing is with a piece of dowel rod, okay, or a little broomstick handle. Use a wooden spoon sometimes. Anything that's going to be of a reasonable thickness. Think about the size of your finger, maybe a little bit bigger than that. And anything that you can stand on, it's not going to break. Cool. So on the ground, initially you're just going to try and roll it forward and back underneath your foot. I've got most of my weight still on my back leg, so that I've only got maybe 20% of my weight going forward and back through my foot. As you get more confident, you can start a bit more weight going into it. Now, this is particularly good around the pads of your toes, rolling through your arch. You may find along the journey a few tender spots. Obviously, your toes are a lot more mobile, so you're not going to get a whole lot of doing it underneath your toes, nor underneath your heel, which is just one large bone, and it can be a little bit sensitive if you put a lot of weight through that. There's not a lot of sponge there compared to the rest of your foot, so I wouldn't recommend your heel or your toes, but definitely the pads of your toes through to the middle of your foot. Now, through that rolling process, if you happen to find a little bit of tenderness along the way, find where that tender spot is, keep your heel on the ground, gently bend your knee forward and back over the pole. Okay. After about half a dozen. Then we're going to start adding in a little bit of rotation. So you can go forward, let your knee collapse into the inside of your foot as it rolls back, and just do that circle around the inside of your leg a few times. Then we go back to the front. Now you're going to try and go to the outside. Okay, so you go up through the middle, roll the foot to the outside. You're not going to get as far out, just the nature of how the foot is shaped. Then you put the two together to draw a big circle. So you go all the way in as you roll forward and all the way out again. And you're welcome to do that in both directions. Cool. And then I recommend keep rolling forward and back, find the next tender spot and continue through that. Okay, now in terms of how much, because this stuff can be pretty tender, I'd recommend finding like an intensity of about a 5 out of 10. Okay, I wouldn't go above that. Once you start getting really deep into it, you're going to open up a whole lot of opportunity for there to be a lot more mobility than there is actually strength to stabilize the area. Okay, but if you go like a 5 out of 10, your body's uncomfortable with it, but it's okay. It'll also mean that you can relax. Okay, because if you can't relax, also your body's going to get really rigid and try and get rid of it. All right, so hit that 5 out of 10. Do 4 or 5 different spots on your foot. Same on the other side. Okay, don't spend all day on it. Again, the best thing you can do is walk around barefoot on lots of different surfaces. This is just an opportunity to try and open up some new territory in and around those structures of your feet, because there's lots of bones and ligaments and tendons in that area compared to, for example, your leg, which is a lot of muscle but only one big bone. Yeah, so this is a chance to try and pry it all open a little bit. Good. And then after that, again, you might go walking around on some different surfaces, see what you can find. And then the last thing, again, we balance. So I've just got a little cushion here, pretty soft, pretty spongy, pretty happy to move around. All it's going to do is provide a little bit of opportunity for us to be unstable. And all I'm going to do is just try and stand on it and just let your body react. Okay. Now the simple version is just to stand, try and press your toes into the cushion, let the middle of your foot move to react and control it. Okay. When you want to get fancy about it, you can start closing your eyes. Great, and you start to see again what the vestibular system is doing in terms of helping it connect into your foot and holding your body up against posture. Or another favorite, when we train our visual system as well, which is a lot more like what we do in everyday life. Look at something at the end of the room, keep focusing on it, start turning your head without losing sight of whatever it is at the end of the room. Okay, and you can play around with different angles. Okay, side to side, up and down. You can draw big circles. Hey. Okay, and that's all part of the fun, letting your body auto-correct and try and react. That's what we want. Okay, we want to put your body into a position where it has to try and correct itself to organize all the muscles around our waistline and our spine, as well as creating an opportunity to be in a position where, although it is quite safe, you still have to try and organize yourself, because outside in the real world, that's where things can catch you off guard. But if you're at least going through the motions of trying to be prepared, you're less likely to find yourself in a position where you're compromised, which can potentially lead to injury, worst case scenario. So that's lots of really great stuff you can do with your feet. Mix and match, do little bits of it every day, build up your tolerance for how sensitive your feet are. Really can't emphasize that enough. Also, really important you take your time, because feet are sensitive and you use them so much. If they get a bit grumbly, take some pressure off, okay? Go back into some nice comfortable shoes until your feet settle down and really gently work through it again. You'll find the next time that you have a bit more tolerance right from the get-go. But please take your time, don't push through any discomfort, give your time feet to rest. Thanks very much.